Today's guest on Leaders in Cars Getting Coffee is Bumblebee.
My name is
Bumblebee.
Why is Bumblebee the perfect car for our episode today? Well, because we're riding with an American, a dear friend of mine and my wingman during my time at Crytek when we literally abolished HR in favor of a self-organizing organization, which is Cortney Endecott, now the managing director of McCann worldwide in Germany. And if you look at this car, it has a lot of what we did back then in the games industry. First of all, just look at him, right? He's like the equivalent of this, right? I mean, this car just screams, fuck you, challenge me, right? And I think the games industry, to some extent, was exactly that. It was a very challenging industry, but very much alive and very, very ahead of the curve. But the thing that really gets me with Bumblebee is that the guy can't talk, right? Or he has to express himself in many different ways. And when we talk about Amy and our own artificial intelligence, she also can't talk. She has to express herself in different ways. So this is the perfect car for us today to get on the road with and show where artificial intelligence is, what we've done in the games industry, and how awesome a wingman Cortney Endecott was. There's one thing I have to show you though, which is show you the character of this car. It's gonna look a little bit awkward. I'm taking you along for the ride. If you want to know what kind of people drive this car, then check out this symbol. There's actually a latch for when you're kidnapped and you want to get out of the car, you can pull this and jump out of the trunk. Yeah, fuck you. I got us Bumblebee!
That is pretty cool.
That is pretty
my
cool,
son's
right?
going to be crazy about that, man.
You should have seen my son.
He's going to be crazy about that.
This morning I brought my son to school with it, and he's like,
No way.
Dad, can you sell both Teslas and we get this? I was like, really?
It
He's
would
like,
be cooler. I kind of happen to agree with him. I mean, just yesterday my son bought these Bumblebee house shoes. Not house shoes, I guess. Yeah, it's like house shoes
Yeah.
for kindergarten.
but
And
you
he's,
know
like,
why it's
super excited.
You know why it's the same color scheme as the Jet? It
Why?
comes with a gas station.
Doesn't last long.
It doesn't last long. But for the little while it lasts, it's a fucking hoot.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. I'm gonna throw my jacket in
The other
back.
thing is, okay, just throw it in the back. The other thing is that it's got enough space for us.
Yeah?
I mean, find a car for us that has enough space. When I asked Cal, like, why do you love this so much? What's the difference to the Tesla? And he said, the seats are further apart. I'm like, yeah, this is made for American asses.
This
you know?
is
Like,
yeah, exactly. This is made for big boys, right?
This is made for the big boys.
It's made for big boys who like their potato chips.
I like the potato chips. Though, we both
Yeah,
made
yeah,
that
yeah.
with it.
No, I'm
You've
good,
always-
man.
yeah.
I'm still okay.
You're still okay? Thank you. What are you
It's
trying
not
to say?
sure. Nothing. I think you look great.
So, we'll just go once around the building just to piss people here off. I mean, just
Why would it piss people off?
because they wake
Because
up,
it's
you know?
loud. Good.
This is-
they
I
need
mean,
to
this
wake
is,
up.
people are going to lunch in Germany now. It's almost 12.
Yeah, they don't want to hear this loud car.
Yeah. Man, I was looking forward to this.
Me
It's been
too.
way too long.
I know.
What do you think about our new digs?
It's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome.
It's huge.
It's huge.
You have everything.
Everything. It's literally like, I was always wondering, you know, if I'd ever get the chance to live out all my boyhood dreams and then make a case for it that it's business.
Are you doing that?
Oh, when my mom
So what
stepped
are you
into that
missing?
office, she was like, really, Heiko? Really? I'm like, no. Everything here has a business purpose. She's like,
Sure.
Heinz, we brought him up wrong. He was literally like, what is that toy dog doing? And no, it's about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, my ass. You just wanted that thing, right? I was under the illusion when we were at Crytek together, and maybe henceforth we shall not name the company anymore because we
This
will
is probably
get,
last time.
we
Or
will
we'll
get
bleep it.
sued.
We'll
We'll bleep
bleep
it out. Or we'll bleep it ourselves. So when we worked at Bleep together,
Yeah. We can do that. We can do that.
let's see if we have the discipline for it.
With the 3 bleeps.
the 3 bleeps, the 3 bleeps, and it was bleep and bleep. But anyways, when we were working at Bleep together, and this gives us a chance to actually tell that story,
Mm-hmm.
I was under the illusion that I was your boss. Because I picked you up from the rubble, you were young, you needed the money, you know, I
Yeah.
saved you from the gutter.
Sure.
No, but actually there was some design to this. You know, usually I have 11% of a plan when I do something, and it was I didn't want to have an HR person, and you were not HR.
Not really.
At the time, you were at a law firm, right? You were like Harvey Specter sort of thing.
Well, I was at a law firm, and I helped Harvey Specter.
You were Donna.
That's
You
right.
were Donna.
I
Okay.
was more of a Donna.
You were
Sure.
more of a Donna. And then I was like, come on, be my Donna. No, but what I loved about you was that, apart from the fact that we had chemistry and you needed the money, was that you had this customer attitude. You know, you were really about people, and not sort of in this HR-y psychology way, but genuine caring. And later it dawned on me that I think a lot of your upbringing, your socializing with faith and everything, you know, it had a lot of influence in the genuine affection you had for people. But we don't recruit for that kind of stuff in HR.
It's
right?
not what you look for necessarily, but no, I mean, I would absolutely agree that forget what I learned in school, or studying psychology, or what it doesn't. None of that matters. The most I learned was, you know, watching my parents, watching my dad. Which is weird, you know. You grew up as a preacher's kid. That's like right? That's something you have to get used to. But I learned so much just in how he dealt with people, dealt with situations, and that has an impact on you as well. It makes you kind of look at how you interact and how you want to understand before you make decisions.
So what did you think the first time I presented you with this whole RH crazy batshit notion?
Oh man, I mean, obviously back then
Like
it wasn't.
you were in Stepstone. You were
was,
like, look.
Yeah, exactly. Immediately, is Stepstone still a thing?
What was it back then?
I
Monster?
don't know. Probably Monster. I have no idea. You know, honestly, in the first moment, and I think it was, you know, it wasn't clearly defined yet as a vision either.
11%.
All that 11%, right? And those 11% were great, but you know, the 89 were still unclear to me. So all I heard in the first moment was, we need to make ourselves redundant, right? That's all I hear.
You go ahead.
Right? So,
you go ahead.
You know, Cortney, I want you to, you know, assist in this vision and help, and the goal is for us not to be needed. And so that's kind of the way at first it hit me. But then in watching what we were trying to do and trying to integrate that in the teams, and as we did workshops on it and kind of really started to fill out that vision, I did clearly understand what the goal was. And it's not to eliminate a function, but rather to change a function entirely from what it was before, right? And beyond that, to ensure that the topic of people and how we manage people and how we see resources and how we even see the business or the vision of the business as a whole can be redefined.
And again, there's a metaphor for me when I was thinking ahead of our ride together today, and I thought, there's actual faith for which you don't need a church. I think church is the community that gathers around it. But there's this example of all these mega churches in the US, you know, which for me are very little about faith and a lot about commerce. And I think right now we have a lot of organized movements in this new workspace, which for me feel like this mega churches rather than actual faith, which I thought we tried to achieve and achieved in parts with RH to say it's really about the humans, about the teams and stuff like that. What do you think made the difference? I mean, first of all, do you agree with it? Or
No, I mean, I would agree with that. If I look at large organizations, whether it be a church or you know, a large company or a large nonprofit, whatever, or government organization, it does become less about a clear mission statement, less about the individual people, and more about, I don't know, profiting themselves at times. Yeah. So there obviously is a benefit from ensuring that people work more closely together and understand what they're actually there for. But for me, I mean, right now, I love being in an organization of the size I'm in right now, which is like under 500 people, because it does allow me to be, to really feel the impact of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes also in kind of smaller groups and smaller roles, and then to watch that kind of grow organically into all the other areas. And that's one of the biggest challenges I think that big organizations have when they didn't start on the right foundation from the get-go.
Yeah.
Is now you you can't just start from the bottom up. You have to start from the top down, and that's way more difficult.
And you
to
don't
actually
really have
do.
the time to say, we take a time out for making
No,
a profit.
exactly, right. So we're
Still an
going to focus on values, and we're going to focus on why we're here, and on the business. And when I say business, I don't mean money, but what is it that we do and want to offer, right?
Cool.
Tunnel. Uh-oh.
That's basically asking us for it, right?
Go.
This is so much fun. I think that was 10 liters right there.
We probably need gas soon. What is it? How are we?
No, we're full.
No,
I filled her up. I filled him up.
We're okay.
So,
Look, 300 euro later.
300 euros. Do you have a feeling that a lot of what we learned, not just in RH, but in the Bleepin organization at large, informed you now as a managing director, the decisions that you made or avoid?
I think that what we learned at the time and what we had set out as a vision, I think it affected me greatly. I think it led me to where I am now. I mean, the decisions that I make, in the directions that we go in, trying to not ever allow that human resources as a whole is just seen as administrative and just getting things done in the background. So reacting, but rather has to be strategic, has to understand
But then
the business.
100% of people would sign up to that, right? And say, oh yeah, that's our HR.
I think they'll all say that, but it's not going to be. So if you really ask them, like my interpretation of what we need to be, would actually be that HR is the one function in the whole organization that should have the broadest understanding of the business. And when I say business, I don't just mean the people. I mean the actual offer, the actual even financials, or where the company stands in its organizational structure and where it needs to go. So they won't ever have a deep dive. They cannot do that. They're not going to understand.
You can have so many
all
Renaissance
technology.
people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that. Those are specialists. But this function and area of HR and operations as a whole needs to understand the whole organization better than anybody else, so that they can advise on the right scale.
For me, I think that the more accidental, game-changing thing that we did back then at Bleep was that we really tried to understand who's buying the games.
Yeah.
Right? Because we didn't just focus on, okay, we need to sell that many copies of the game. It wasn't just the placeholder of the KPI or the metric, but we said, do we love the game that we're making? Do you remember at the time we made this multiplayer Bleep game?
Yeah.
And then people in their lunch break, they would play Left 4 Dead.
Yeah. Which
And
is like, well, why is that happening?
Exactly. That's like, you have a Tesla in the lunch break, you take out Bumblebee, right? You're like, what's going on?
It's fun.
Yeah. And then you're like, well, why don't you get a Bumblebee? Or why don't you
Right.
build yourself one
Right.
if you work at Tesla, right? You can't very authentically believe in what you're doing if you're not driving another car.
So if you don't have a passion for it outside.
Exactly. So we're saying we're the masters of our own destiny. So why are you playing that game over that game? What's going on? And I think that, in a way, became the spirit of really looking at how games are made, even before Agile was a thing, and really focusing on. Do you remember how we were sitting there like at 2:00 in the morning testing games for Jan Lechner?
I remember.
And it was so hard with that level.
And you and I were just laughing. And then there's mistakes in between with like people without heads and whatever.
I will never forget that. We're playing this level, and you were sitting across from me. You're like, this is so fucking hard. And then Jan Lechner pops in and is like, so how do you like the build? And we're like, I don't know, the invisible aliens with the red eyes are so hard to shoot. And he turns around, he's like, the build is broken, the aliens are invisible. I'm like, oh, that wasn't a feature, that was a bug? Fuck!
Yeah, but you know what? I thought it was a really cool feature.
It was cool. But the other thing was that we had such a stretch of the things that we did. We had the whole recruitment thing going on. As
Absolutely.
you said, we were growing exponentially. We were trying to reinvent the HR organization.
And relocation. We had relocation service and cultural service for everybody that came
But don't
in.
forget, we manned the front reception,
Oh, yeah.
and we were in charge of food.
Oh yeah, we did food runs.
Do you remember
on the
the
weekends?
Post-it
I know.
stamps?
I know how many orders of bagels I took in.
Where's
or
the
Thai
vegan one?
food, Indian
There's
food.
200 packets of food.
Just grab one.
The vegan one. I mean, the thing how we approached it, that was how basically Santa Jacobson sort of put the RH way into game mechanics and said, well, let's define what we want to do with this greater gaming, which basically is now what Steam is, I would say, right? And now let's see everything that we need to do in the company, that we need to build to make this a self-organizing company. So that's the wish list. We need to get that done. And this is all the stuff that we need to get rid of. That's the shit list. So it became sort of, the whole organization became an agile backlog, right? But there was one key thing there, which was the behavior of the leaders that we could only influence to an extent that wasn't enough, right?
No, because then suddenly a decision would be made to revive something or to kill something that it made no sense.
But I want to hark back to the beginning of the conversation, because that's, you know, the end of Top Gun where he says, you can be my wingman. He says, no, screw you, you can be mine. That I think for the longest time, I was also trying to figure out, I mean, this is the first time I was in a leadership position for a whole organization and trying to sort of be the part, you know, and be the little daddy figure and stuff like that and get the chip off my shoulder. And for the longest time, I thought I was your boss. I was trying to be your boss. And that just didn't fucking work. Because, I mean, first of all, you're pretty impossible to lead in a way, and you had very strong opinions of yourself. And I noticed, burgers, that when I tried and you disagreed, you'd do whatever the fuck you wanted anyways in another way and then convince me later on.
Sounds
I'll
right.
get
Sounds
our
about
food.
right. I'll think about how to
the conclusion to that when we have our burgers in there. So what I learned from our whole, well, that was really like a troika. If you want, it was a quartet at some point with Susanne and Catherine as well, and then the wider team with Anna and Julia and all the people in the studios, who I think were completely bought into it. I understood that leadership wasn't about my position, but it was about our complementary skill sets. Like, we were leading the team in a way that, maybe we even got shit for our titles. Remember when you put Worldwide Talent Manager and the bleep came in? It was global. Yeah,
I mean,
why are you global? Well, because I'm helping the other studios. Hey, why is it global? What's your fixation with titles? And we're like, we just,
sure,
doesn't
Mr.
matter.
CEO.
Exactly. CFO, founder, co-founder, president, master of the universe, bleep.
You're worried about the word global.
Exactly.
You can say international if you'd like.
Name 3 countries and not Turkey.
That's right.
Bleep. I had this talk with my dad where I asked him what was the best thing you ever did as an HR guy, and he's like, oh, it's something that probably no one will ever hear of. And he's like, I don't know, the Deutsche Bank didn't have the pensions set aside, so it was all in a fund and could have gone up in smoke if they went under. So he said, I asked the board to basically take that out of the profit and take a hit, but then we have it, right, and be safe. But he said that will never make the press because, anyways, there was this time, I think, when it was clear for me this journey was over, and I had approved a whole bunch of salary changes because I was like, fuck it, this is going to be my last good deed. And you said, that's not going to fly, especially because you're going to make it and you're a lame duck at this point. Yeah. And it's just going to backfire with the people. I will go in, I will have that talk with them, and I will talk them through. And I was like, just let's just wing it. Let's just put it through. Let's just give it to finance, knowing that finance was also on their way out.
Yeah.
But
that's not going to work.
But at that point, I think you had the courage and you felt the responsibility to say, I need to do this right or we don't do it at all. Where I was already like, fuck it, fuck the rules, fuck the system.
Well, you were just going to make sure it got done.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have gotten done. And that was the wrong approach, right? But I was also really glad I didn't have to do it anymore. Because I know you had to go to the clown bleep.
I did have to go to the clown bleep, and it was not a fun conversation, but they all got signed.
Yeah.
It worked.
Exactly. And was I already in the car? Was I already in the car?
Like, look, he just left. I can also leave today if you'd like. You probably.
It's basically every conversation with them was like this.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Like, can I get this? The one story I wanted to get in, because people always ask me about this thing with stars. I think that was a big success for us. Do you remember when we did the stars trial run, and then IT cheated, and they were basically like gamifying how they would.
They were giving each other. Yeah.
And I remember we had this. Then the bleeps came to me and they said, now we have to have a rule book. We have to tell them how, like, 25% of stars have to go outside your department, 50 out of the studio because we want cross-studio collaboration. Yeah. And then we got because we didn't have a workers' council, so what we did was we created like an elder council, like the bleeps first.
Cry bleep.
Cry bleeps first. And we talked to them, and they were like, well, if you make the rule book, you might as well just scrap the thing, right? So let us talk to IT. I remember them walking into IT, and it was, well, I'm going to edit the shit out of this anyway, but it was Sade. Remember Sade?
I remember.
And his gang of vigilantes.
I remember who did it. Thank you.
I don't even know if Sade knew about it, or if it got just done by his minions, or if he cared. He was probably at home of the bleeps installing a surround sound
That's
system.
right, man.
Well, what
Helping
the
set
servers
up
are down. Where's the IT guy? Oh, he's installing the home cinema for Bleep.
God, that really happened, by the way.
Exactly. And they took care of it. And for me, that was like a huge step forward to say, yeah, they can take care of it if you treat them like adults. Obviously, some won't act like adults, but I mean, basically what we instilled in the company was martial law. And it worked in a way, right?
It did. And you know, the best story about stars was that there was like suddenly this major concern about a certain group of people, and particularly one person in the company, where someone came in and approached us and said, hey, stars is not going to work because I'll give you an example. There's this guy, his name is Bleep.
He's wearing a gas mask.
He's working with a gas. You know, he always comes with a gas mask. And he, behind the scenes, does everything, but nobody will see that he's doing it. He will never get any stars. And I remember he looked at him and said, you're the 7th person today to come and tell me that, so I'm not concerned. Right? So it's like,
we were concerned the first 5 times.
That's right. But no, we're not. So, and that was like also like a really interesting understanding of the system to see that, hey, you know what? Those who we sometimes feel are unseen aren't so unseen, and we will find a way to make sure that they're appropriately compensated.
Well, plus that the logic that the colleagues know better who the guys are who just pretend and have the loudest mouth, whereas they might be very skilled at kissing ass up. And you as a manager are very, what do you know? So to actually hand it to them, to let them do that, because our whole bonus system is leaked.
You mean
But before?
Yeah. Oh, there. Well,
yeah, because it was basically.
It was just. It
was basically. Hey, talk to the bleeps.
That's right.
Yeah.
You want something, go ask. Or it was like just 1% for everybody. Same thing. Didn't matter how good or how bad.
What do you say we get back in the shelter of Bumblebee?
Sounds great. Bumblebee.